What's going on YouTube? Cloverbell's here, back with another Series 12 team building video, and today is finally the day where we are building our very own Celesteela team. You know, many people have asked, Clover, when is the day that, you know, we're finally gonna get the icon back on the channel, right? Because last time we saw Celesteela, we had Dragonair showcase a Celesteela Groudon team, so that was kind of cool, but that was many months ago. We have not made our own Celesteela yet. And until today, where finally I have something figured out that can make good use of Celesteela. Now, it hasn't been easy to try and use the Celesteela Beast Booster, right? Because the thing is with Celesteela, it's just too slow, right? In this kind of format with dual restricteds, where you have everything that's so fast and hard-hitting, it hasn't been easy for Celesteela to find its niche, right? And there's really two ways to play it, right? Either you play it offensively, you know, by exerting a lot of pressure with Dynamax moves, or you play it a slow, bulky way with like Leech Seed and alternating protects, and then you pick up KOs that way, right? So from here, I was trying to figure out, well, what can I put with Celesteela? How exactly can I make use of it in this kind of meta? Well, there's two ways. Either you put it with Kyogre or you put it with Groudon. Both work. And the reason why both work is because they compensate for some of Celesteela's weaknesses, right? So Celesteela is weak to fire types, right? So, you know, if you put Kyogre on the team, then now you're just neutralizing that fire weakness, right? But also if you put Groudon on the team, you know, Celesteela is weak to electric type attacks. So now what you can do is, you know, switch out Steela and then bring in a ground type, and now the electric attack just does nothing, essentially, right? So there's two ways to, you know, try and put it. Either you go with the Groudon or you go with the Kyogre here. Now, I decided, well, let's think a little bit more here. Maybe I can have both, right? So for a while I had the Kyogre, okay, so that'll take away the fire weakness. But then I decided to also add in another ground type here, and that was Landorus, right? So that's the wrong Landorus. Hold on, the other one. So this is the core 3, right? It was pretty much sitting in my builder for like a month and a half, right? It was Celesteela, Kyogre, and Landorus. This is the core of the team, and from here I was trying to figure out, well, how else do I want to support this team? Like, what else can I cover for that's relevant in the meta that can at least make this team, you know, relatively viable? Well, from here I decided, okay, I've covered for the fire weakness, I've covered for the electric weakness, I have a restricted named Kyogre. First of all, I need another restricted. You know, that's the other thing I was thinking about. And then I need some support. Well, from here I decided, you know what, Grimmsnarl fits here relatively well. And the reason being, you know, you would just add bulk for all three of these, right? You have screen support for Landorus and Kyogre and Celesteela, right? Celesteela is always a mon that has always enjoyed Grimmsnarl here. Just to have screens, and then, you know, being able to Dynamax in the past and just sweep teams behind those screens was really strong, right? In previous formats. But in this format, it hasn't been easy to try and use Steela, but it still works, right? Because you still have Kyogre and you still have Landorus. And of course, even without Dynamax, Steela still enjoys the screen support from Grimmsnarl, right? So I had these 4, and then from here, ultimately I discovered a squad from Sunoru. If you don't know Sunoru, it is another Japanese player that was basically using this same 4, but then they rounded out the rest of the team with the restricted and one other support mon, right? So what did they do with Celesteela? So from here, they added something with the Zacian, right? So the Zacian, you know, you might think, well, now you're just doubling up on steel types. Well, it still makes sense, right? Because ultimately what ends up happening is if you have a ground type attack incoming into Zacian, yes, you have Landorus, but then you also have Steela to pivot in for those ground type attacks. And Steela and Landorus also have pretty good synergy together, right? Because not only can Landorus pivot in for that electric attack, but you can always Earthquake next to Steela because your Steela is a flying type. All right, so then from here, what else was the main thing that you needed to go for? The last step, for me, at least what Sunoru also did, was they decided to go with the Thundurus here. And Thundurus is also really strong on, you know, Kyogre and Zacian teams, right? Because now what you can do is you have a pretty good Sun matchup, right, with the Landorus and the Thundurus and screens, because now you're faster than the Zard, and now if they want to intimidate your Landorus, well, now your Thundurus just gets a Defiant boost, and here's another Mon that you can always Earthquake next to because you are a flying type, right? So, and you can always lead, you know, Thundurus Zacian, you know, just to exert a lot of offensive pressure in the opening turns, you know, bring in Grimmsnarl, set up screens for the end game, and then Kyogre or Celesteela can just come in and sit behind those screens and finish the game off for you, ideally, right? So this is a pretty cool team, okay? And just being able to have access to screens and just make this entire team bulky is pretty cool. Now, as far as our speed control options, we have a few on the team, which is always nice. You know, we have a couple of air streamers. The Kyogre is going to have a speed control move, which you'll see in a second, and of course, Grimmsnarl always has access to a plethora of speed control moves, right? So before we build the rest of the team, let's just go ahead and reveal the GIFs. Here's the Celesteela, here's the Ogre, here's the Thundurus, Landorus, the Zacian as the other restricted, and finally in the back we have the Grimmsnarl. So now let's go ahead and do the movesets, the items, and then ultimately the EVs. Okay, so how are we going to decide to do the Celesteela here? So I think there's two ways to do it, as we said at the beginning of the video, and I'll give you, the viewer, both of these options depending on how you want to consider trying the Celesteela. If you want the offensive set, then you need the Power Orb item, right, which will give you access to Meteor Beam, okay, which is really nice, right, because Celesteela at +1, you know, hits very, very hard, especially when you have the ability to Dynamax it. But we already have like a lot of Dynamax options on the team with like Landorus, Thundurus, and even the Kyogre. This Celesteela does not need to Dynamax here. We just need it to be bulky and have an endgame here. But just for the sake of having access to, you know, a Celesteela set that maybe you might use later on, here it is. So something like Air Slash, of course, for your max airstream, Flash Cannon, your Steel Spike, and then of course Protect. And then, you know, a typical nice little benchmark here is, of course, you're gonna go Modest Nature and then go to the second EV bump here, which is at 180, right? Because the first one is over here at 100 investment. So you see how you jump from 152 to 154. That's our first EV bump. Then 80 more EVs will give you the second bump, right? So 163 to 165. This is 180, but then you know, you don't want that odd number because of the Power Orb boost. Okay, you always want to have that even number, so you can just go up 1, and now it's perfectly fine, right? Because times 1.5, it's a round whole number rather than a decimal if this was an odd number. And then from here, the benchmark is actually just like 112. Okay, pretty much almost max speed here. And then at +1, you outspeed base 100s like a Charizard or a Zapdos. So that's always very much welcome. And then from here, you can just add a point in the bulk. So now you have nice even numbers in the defense, and then the rest just goes into HP, something like this. This is an offensive Celesteela set. All right, now if you want the non-offensive version, which I think is appropriate for this team, okay, then I recommend the Leech Seed set. Okay, so what was the Leech Seed set? So it's basically a Leech Seed and Substitute, and this is what a few players have done before me, and I think it works well. Because what you can do is have this endgame option of setting up sub, then clicking Leech Seed, and then just alternating your protects and just slowly withering your opponent down. And then in terms of our nature, we just want to be bold here. But at the same time, what we're going to do is make sure that our special defense is higher than our defense. So this way, when we pick up a KO, we get the defense. The special defense as the bulk. So this way we can survive stuff like, you know, Regieleki or like Kyogre shenanigans. Now in this move slot over here, first of all, we don't need the power, it's going to be leftovers. What I think we want is either a couple of moves. Either you want Flamethrower, which, you know, lets you hit Zacian for super effective damage, or lets you hit Kartana for super effective damage, even like stuff like Amoonguss or Venusaur. You know, I think Flamethrower has a lot of merit. I know you're on a Kyogre team, but it's still pretty good. Or you put something like Energy Ball here. So the main idea with Energy Ball is, you know, it's for Gastrodon, right? Because, you know, when you see a Kyogre team, you know, you want to bring the Gastrodon to try and neutralize the Kyogre. But then if you just have Energy Ball, you can just remove that threat immediately and then have Kyogre come in the back and finish things off, right? So I think both of those moves are good. Now, if you want to just go with the standard Flash Cannon set, you know, it's traditional stab move, that works too. I just think you get a little bit more bang out of your buck if you have Flamethrower or Energy Ball. But for the sake of the video, we'll just keep it as Energy Ball for now, but understand that you can change that to whatever move you see fit. Okay, from here, Grimmsnarl. So we're going to do something a little bit different with the Grimmsnarl than what we've done in the past. But we're still going to be running Spirit Break, Light Screen, and Reflect. Now, the one thing I do want to change here is instead of Scary Face, I do want to have the Trick Lagging Tail set, right? And this is starting to pick up in usage as we get closer to the World Championships, right? Because this is just like ultimate speed control and not just like giving them the lagging tail, but taking away an important item, like something like a Focus Sash or a Life Orb, or maybe even a Weakness Policy is very, very detrimental in the right scenario, especially in a Dynamax format. So being able to take that away and then just giving them this pretty much a useless item which hinders them is very, very costly if you can get it off, right? Or costly for them, I should say. Okay, and then for Kyogre here, because we have a Grimmsnarl on the team, you know, we want to be super bulky, so I think Assault Vest is the way to go. And what we want to do is just have, you know, access to everything you have, you know, in the standard Assault Vest Kyogre, which is stuff like Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Thunder is pretty good in the mirror, and then finally Hyper Beam is good for, you know, max strike speed control, which is the advantage and the benefit of having Assault Vest Kyogre. Now, pretty much every single Kyogre we've been building had Ice Beam for the Gastrodon. So here's the thing: if you go Flamethrower on the Celesteela, then I think you should at least have Ice Beam over the Thunder on the Kyogre, right? So this way you have something, you know, to try and beat the Gastrodon with, right? Now you can still overpower it with stuff like Zacian and maybe even Landorus a little bit, but you know, these Gastrodons have Ice Beam, so I don't know how helpful that's going to be. So that's just a little bit of advice if you decide to change up the Celesteela set a little bit. But we'll keep it as Hyper Beam, Thunder, Origin Pulse, and Water Spout for now for the sake of the video. Zacian, you know, very standard set. Of course, Behemoth Blade, Sacred Sword, you know, Play Rough, and of course, Protect, right? So that's relatively standard. For Landorus, now, you know, being able to pivot your Intimidate mod onto Landorus is very costly, especially, but you know, when you have the Thundurus, you can kind of mitigate that a little bit. But for ultimately speaking, I think you can just put White Herb on this, and then Landorus is okay in terms of like getting the Incineroar or an opposing Landorus out of position, because you know the White Herb just neutralizes that. All right, Earthquake, of course, relatively standard. Fly, Rock Slide, and I think Swords Dance is pretty good. Now you can run Protect here, but I think just being able to Swords Dance behind screens is actually quite nice. The Thundurus, we just want it to be like super hard hitting and offensive, so of course this is going to be our Life Orb set. It's going to be Wild Charge, Fly, you know, Brick Break to break screens, and then Protect, right? So again, very good into like opposing Kyogre teams. You know, Landorus is nice against the Sun stuff. Grimmsnarl, you know, very good in Trick Room and Tailwind games. And of course, Kyogre, you have the option to like bring it in the end and Dynamax it and exert all that pressure, or you can play for the end game where like Celesteela can just go for Leech Seed and sub stuff and then just slowly wither away your opponent and then just win the game from there, right? So I kind of like this team. I think this is like, you know, if you had to use Celesteela in Series 12, I think this is the way to go about it. Now, that being said, there is another way you can play this, and that's with Groudon, but maybe we'll save that for another video for another time, right? So now that we have the moves and the items, now we'll just go ahead and start talking about the EVs. So let's look at that. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at how we're going to do the EVs for Celesteela. So again, like I mentioned, we want the speed def to outweigh the defense, and there's a couple ways to do that. You can either do it with a bold set or a calm set. We're just going to show the calm set, but if you want to see the bold set, let me know in the comments and I'll post the bold set. But they're pretty much going to be doing the same thing. It's just how you move around the numbers. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go to the first bump here in the calm natured here. So like you see how you go from 141 to 143 investment. So that's 68 EVs for speed def, but we want to go a little bit more. Okay, up to 84, and then from here we just want 164, I believe. Yeah, so now what we have is Our Spadef outweighs our defense by 1 point, and now that means when we pick up a KO, we get a special defense boost, right? So from here, we have 260 EVs left. So all I really want is, you know, I'll have 1 point in special attack. I don't really need special attack on this kind of Steela set, but it's just so that, you know, you invest properly so you don't waste any EVs. And I don't need any speed here. I could just put like 1 point in speed and just go like full HP like this. And this could be our calm set. And I think it's okay. But, you know, I decided I want to be a little bit faster just to outspeed like Incineroar. You know, just a little bit. Because I don't want Incineroar to go first and go for a Flare Blitz. You know, Steela's not really going to like that. So I decided to drop the HP just a little bit. You know, not too much. And then just invest a little bit in speed. And 85 is faster than, you know, a good number of Incineroars, right, I should say. So I kept it like this. But again, you don't really need so much of this speed, but, you know, I have it there just to outspeed some Incineroars, right? So that's our Steela set. For Grimmsnarl here, you know, again, just a very general set, you know, just go careful nature. I've been running a relatively standard Grimmsnarl set for a while where we just go like second bump here, and then we just invest the rest. You know, 220 and then 156 in the defense, and then just a little bit of speed and 1 point in attack. But I'm going to do something a little bit different this time around. But it's pretty much just going to be the same build, right? So this was our old build, and this is pretty much still our build, where after, you know, an Intimidate swap in with Reflect, we survive the Zacian Behemoth Blade, right? I think that's fine. You know, this is still our Grimmsnarl set. There's another set where what you can do is just pretty much just max the HP that way. And I'll just show you what that looks like. So something like this. Yeah, so you can also do the Grimmsnarl like this, where you drop a little bit of defense but invest more in the HP, and I think that's still okay. But for the, you know, for the sake of being consistent, I'll just keep it back to our old Grimmsnarl EV set. All right, for Kyogre here. So for our speed stat, this is going to be one of our Assault Vest Kyogre builds, where we showed it in our How to Build Kyogre series. If you haven't watched that video, check that out. We went over like a bunch of different spreads for Kyogre, depending on the team. But I think what we want here is just to aim for that 120 benchmark. And this will let you outspeed an opposing Thundurus after a +1 airstream. Either that's coming from Landorus or Thundurus, of course. And then from here, second EV bump in the special attack stat. You know, just, you know, we have a relatively strong Kyogre with 12 points and special defense. So this way you have the odd number. So this way you get the best bang for your buck with the Assault Vest, right? So I think that's okay. And then from here, just a little bit of optimization. So you can just go, you know, 191 in the HP stat. This will, you know, optimize weather damage from like Hailstorm, Sand Chip, and then you can just dump the rest into defense like this, right? This is a pretty standard Assault Vest Kyogre spread. All right, Zacian. We're still sticking with the same Zacian spread that we've been using like since maybe even Series 11 even. Second EV bump in the attack stat, you know, just 160. Technically it's at 156, but again, the 1.5 boost with the Rusted Sword makes it that this is an odd number. We don't want odd numbers, otherwise they just get rounded down. So we always just go to 164 just to get that nice even whole number. All right, then just 1 point in the bulk. And then, you know, 185 just to outspeed Regieleki with the +1, but, you know, we want to outspeed like other speed creepers. So we go like to 187, and then the rest just gets dumped into HP stat, right? 191 is always a very nice benchmark in, you know, in that regard. All right, Landorus here. So we just want like a super fast Landorus, you know, very standard Jolly set with 252 investment. And then what I go here is just 175. Just to like optimize, you know, the hail chip damage that you might take over time, and to give you at least a bit of a roll to survive the opposing Zacian Behemoth Blade, right? And then the rest just goes into attack like this. I think this is a relatively standard Landorus in terms of, you know, being a Swords Dance set already. Thundurus, again, same like Landorus, where you just want to go like max speed. You optimize the HP for the Life Orb chip, and again, the reason with the Life Orb chip, you always want to end in a 9, because with Life Orb, you know, you take 1/10 of your HP per turn, so 159 divided by 10 is 15.9, which rounds down to 15 damage per turn. If I break the threshold like this to go to 160, now I'm taking 16 damage per turn from the Life Orb. I don't want that. I don't need to take any more damage than I need to from the Life Orb. So, and then from here, just 1 point in the bulk, and then of course the rest just goes into attack stat like this. Okay, yeah, so very general stuff, like things we've done on the channel before, just sticking to our principles. in terms of how we want to start our squad. You know, some of this stuff you've seen me in my other teams before. It hasn't really changed all that much. It's just the Steela that's the interesting newcomer here, right? So let's go ahead and put this paste up here. Okay, so again, you know, it looks like a relatively solid team. You got screens, you have some speed control with Trick, also max strike with the Kyogre, max airstream from the Landorus and Thundurus, right? You have endgame options with the Celesteela, and then of course, you know, potential dynamax Kyogre and Zacian just, you know, annihilating your opponent, you know, behind the bulk that they already have. So if there was a Steela squad for Kyogre Series 12, I think this is one of them. And again, this is all like, you know, this 6 was pretty much inspired, you know, from Sunoru, just a different set. And at the end of the video, we'll take a look at what Sunoru had, and we'll see like some differences in what we have, and then, you know, you can always comment about the differences there. All right, but what I want to do now is just to showcase this kind of set in a couple battles, just to see how the team works, and then we'll get you guys out of here with some concluding remarks. Okay, so this is an Yveltal Groudon team. So Yveltal team that was made worse by adding a Meowstic. I couldn't tell you why they put that there. I'd much rather see Grimmsnarl or maybe even like Regieleki in that slot, but you know, they have a Meowstic here. So couple things. I don't think we really need Steela here all that much. Again, I think just the power of Thundurus, Zacian, and Kyogre is more than enough. With Landorus as well, I think those 4 is what we bring to a matchup like this, just to be able to change the weather and then put on pressure with the Landorus and the Ogre and even the Zacian coming in from the back, right? Because technically, you know, when we look at their team and you look at ours, we're the faster team, so that means we should be able to exert more pressure than them, right? So he goes with Yveltal Meowstic. That should be Yveltal Grimmsnarl, and now we're going with Zacian Thundurus. So, well, one thing I do want to account for is I could easily max lightning this Yveltal here and just wipe it off the face of the earth. You know, even if he switches into Charizard, that dies, but he can easily switch that into Groudon, and then I waste a turn of Dynamax, right? This is probably like a Thunder Wave Screens Meowstic set, so, you know, he could be doing that. I don't know what he wants to do. But, you know, Zacian just exerts so much pressure here, so there's no reason why I can't just attack. But I still just want to airstream it just in case he does switch into Groudon, so this way I get some damage out of it. And then, you know, Meowstic I just want to chip. So he just sets up the reflect, so I choose also not to Dynamax it, just in case he just goes for that switches. You know, in the end, I did want to go for Airstream, but I still went for a Wild Charge anyway, but no Max, right? So even if he switches into Groudon, I don't get punished for Dynamax Max Lightning. And, you know, even if the Wild Charge hits nothing, then at the very least, I don't commit my Dynamax. So that's what I decided at the end there. So he does set up the Reflect, but now I can Max, right? Because now I put on more pressure, you know, even though he did set up screens. So he goes for Foul Play, you know, I did expect that. But now what he can do is also Sucker Punch the Zacian and chip it even more, but I don't want that. So I just end up protecting the Zacian, and he did go for the Sucker Punch. So this is just where my Airstream comes into play. So we knock out the Yveltal already. And he does get both of his screens up, but again, we have 2 physical attackers on the field. So here's the Groudon coming in. He can easily just max this right now and, you know, go for Thundurus, but I can also, you know, just get rid of the Meowstic and double in on that slot. Or even like bring in Landorus. And just kill the Meowstic, so this way I trap the Groudon with -1. So I have a couple options here, but, you know, ultimately I just decide to stay in and just get some damage off. It's actually Yawn Meowstic, so that's cool. So that was a crit, and you know, I'm surprised he did that. That he had the Citrus Berry, but again, that's like our set. We always like Citrus Berry. So he misses the Zacian. So again, you might say I did get lucky, but again, even if he destroys the Zacian, in comes Landorus. You know, I killed the Meowstic and the Groudon is trapped, right? And there's not much he can do. Obviously, he can switch it out, but then, like, Yveltal comes in to Thundurus and Landorus. That's also not great for him either. So, it doesn't matter in the end. This is just, like, me winning more. So, here's the Behemoth Blade. We kill the Meowstic, and he actually just lets me kill the Groudon anyway, right? And I don't care that both of these are, like, quote-unquote drowsy. I know Thundurus falls asleep, but at the end of the day, you know, Thundurus, you know, with the Dynamax, with the max over, it might as well be dead, right? I don't care that this is sleeping at this point because I already got a lot out of my max. I did what it needed to do. I have Kyogre and the Landorus coming in the end game against one of his only Pokemon left. and I can always switch out the Zacian if I need to eventually, right? So this was the team without using Steel, and you see it's still pretty good, especially with this Thundurus Zacian lead, you know, just to be extremely offensive. Okay, so let's take a look at one more battle. Okay, so this is an interesting Zacian Rayquaza team. So he's got Gastrodon there, you know, just to help him for the Kyogre stuff. I definitely expect it to come in here. There's a Whimsicott, you know, Tailwind, of course, and then the Umbreon and Instant are very good against like Calyrexes, Ice Rider, or even Shadow Rider stuff. So not a bad team. I just don't know about the Rayquaza. I'd much rather see something else in there, maybe like a Reshiram for that matter. But, you know, very good at canceling the weather. But then in that case, why do you have the Gastrodon there? So anyway, so this is a pretty good game for Steela because of our tech of Energy Ball. He actually just leads the Gastrodon right away, and there's the Umbreon. So I'm a little suspicious in that the Energy Ball doesn't KO depending on this Gastrodon slot. So, I mean, EV spread. So I decided to just double in and just ignore the Umbreon. It's not really doing anything. You know, I can always deal with it later. The worst you could do is just like Snarl and Foul Play and Yawn. But I'm fine with that, right? Because I have a bunch of behemoths in the back that can just overpower the Umbreon here. So I just want to remove the Gastrodon so I can get the Ogryn later. So again, there's the live by the Gastrodon. He actually yawns twice, and there's a Spirit Break. So we remove the Gastrodon here. So now essentially that's good because I have Kyogre coming in the back later on. Now he brings in the Zacian here, but like I know the Zacian wants to be aggressive against the Grimmsnarl here, right? There's no reason for him to go for the Steela, especially because, you know, I can just fall asleep even if I stay in. So what I decide to do is take advantage of the Zacian being aggressive and just lead seed that, right? Because even if I fall asleep, I'm still going to be chipping it away and I'm still going to be getting some health back, right? And he needs a couple of turns to try and remove the Steela, but then I just bring in Kyogre in the back, and by then I just pretty much like I can sweep him from here. So I decided to play that game. So he goes for Helping Hand. That doesn't matter. I'm going for Reflect. I don't think he needed the Helping Hand. I think he would have just killed me anyway. And there's this Leech Seed, right? So Steela falls asleep, but that's okay because I can still chip away at the Zacian, and now this Kyogre exerts so much pressure because of course I'm going to Dynamax it. He does go for another Helping Hand. He goes into Ogre, and look how little that does. But that's because I Reflect. So I deal a bunch of damage into the Umbreon, right? It's kind of annoying. I want to get rid of it. I thought he would Snarl, but instead went for Helping Hand. So I think he was better off going for something like Snarl, just to weaken the Ogre damage and waste my max, but he went for Helping Hand. Or if he did do that, I would probably just go Play Rough, but he went with the Behemoth Blade instead. So now I get more health recovery from the Zacian. He goes for another Behemoth Blade. I thought he probably should have went for Play Rough there if he had it. I crit the Zacian, which is kind of funny. Now, he might put the Ogre to sleep here, but I can always click Max Lightning and remove the chance of that happening. So the Wormit actually, so this is a special Rayquaza set because you see I live, and this is the advantage of Assault Vest Kyogre, right? And this is also why Rayquaza is just not that good. Okay, so he tries to kill the Ogre, it doesn't work out. We have the Assault Vest, and we remove the Umbreon, and now it's just Rayquaza against the world here. And I wake up, and of course I'm gonna Leech Seed it, and Steela can just win this game from here. And I know he kills the Ogre, but again, it's fine because now we can always just sub up and then just finish the game. Now we have the Zacian, or of course he's gonna go for the Zacian. He doesn't care about the Steela, right? But really the Steela is the threat. I always want to say that. So we protect the Zacian because he probably wants to either Flare or Quake it. He goes for the Quake. So this way we at least stall one more max, and here's the sub. So now, you know, we have a lot of recovery against this Rayquaza. We can always alternate our protects, and there's no real way this Rayquaza can remove the Steela. The Zacian actually lives here, which is kind of funny, and poor Rayquaza, right? And then it just goes down anyway, right? But even if the Zacian went down, Steela wins this endgame anyway, right? Just because we have the Leech Seed up, we have the sub up, and you can't really break the Steela at the end of the day, right? So rip Rayquaza, but you know, this guy, he said, can I get the pace? That was kind of funny. And we linked him to the channel. So hopefully he sees that in comments in the video. But yeah, that's the team. So that's how Steela functions on this team, right? I know this is like, you know, not the highest of ranked ladder games, and, you know, not the most ideal restricted pair to face, but the way it plays is still the same, right? You want to set up those screens, deal early damage with the Kyogre, you know, and then just have Steela come in the end game and Leech Seed everything, and then just wither life away, and then, you know, you just win the game that way. And you know, that's pretty much how you want to play Celesteela in Series 12 on this particular team. There's other ways where you can like make it a more offensive Dynamax threat, but this is not that type of team. I think you can do that on other teams. So let's take a look at the pace, and let's look at Sonoru's pace and see the difference between the two at the end of the day. Okay, so once again, here's our pace again. We're opting for the special defense boost with the Celesteela. We have Trick Lagging Tail on the Grimmsnarl, and then of course our Kyogre has Max Strike instead of the Ice Beam, and Landorus has the White Herb, and Thundurus has the Life Orb. Now, if we look at Sonoru's team, all right, I was chatting with Sunoru a little bit, right? I just wanted to, give them a shout out because, I had those four, like with the Celesteela, Landorus and Kyogre in the team builder, and then I added the Grimmsnarl, and I just didn't know what I could fit with the other two, and just seeing Zacian and Thundurus just made a lot of sense. So shout out to them for inspiring our version of the team, but this is what they had. So they went with Life Orb Landorus instead, and they put the Sharp Beak on the Thundurus just to be able to have a stronger flying type attack. And you see that they're slower Thundurus, but they're also bulkier Thundurus at the same time, right? So they're calcing for something. I don't know what they are calcing for, but hopefully they can enlighten me on that if they do see this. Now, he's running Babiri Berry with the same standard set with Spirit Break, Scary Face, Reflect, and Light Screen. Babiri Berry is really, really good, right? Because you get up a screen, Zacian Behemoth blades you, you survive it, and then you can get up another screen and then go down and get a free switch into something else, right? So I think Babiri Berry is really good, but I do like the Trick Lagging Tail just for like speed control and being able to remove a key item. But I think both types of Grimmsnarl are very, very good. Now at the Ogre here, you see it like it's a very similar Ogre spread, but they have the Ice Beam move, right? Instead of the Max Strike speed control. I think it's fine. That's definitely what you want to do with the Kyogre. And you see he has the Grass move here with Grass not on the Landorus, and he has the Flamethrower on the Celesteela, right? So that's why I was like going back and forth. Like, if I have the Flamethrower here, I think I have to run like an Ice Beam over here, right? Because how else am I gonna really hit the Gastrodon? But again, you have Grass Knot here, which is kind of weird because it's like special, whereas like this is a physical Landorus, but I can't argue with the set. And then this is also kind of interesting. It's Quick Attack Zacian, no fighting move instead. It is also a bulkier, slower Zacian, kind of like ours, but ours is a little bit faster. This is like super bulky. All right, now Quick Attack is kind of cool, right? Because of the attack boost. So yeah, I mean, this is a very good team. Obviously, it's really good, right? It got 9th at NAIC, so it's probably better. It's most likely better than ours, right? Ours is just like another variation that's like a little bit different in terms of how we want to play it, but I think it still works out, right? Now, I did run this by Sunoru, and they did point out like, if you have Energy Ball here and no Flamethrower, Kartana is a little tricky. You would have to like rely on Sacred Sword from Zacian to KO it. And a little bit of chip damage over time from like Landorus and such, because like it's a little inconsistent and unreliable to rely on Kyogre to deal big damage into Kartana. So I may still like tweak the Celesteela set a little bit, but like I have to decide like what else can I do against the Gastrodon here, right? So but yeah, let me know what you guys think of this type of Celesteela team. I don't know if I can make the rental just yet. Maybe somebody else can make it for me and just message me the rental code. But yeah, this is what we got for Celesteela on a Kyogre team. We'll be back with another Series 12 video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good night.